But the big concern about this inquiry, I mean, it wasn't even going to talk about children and the impact on them from lockdown policy in schools, is it's going to focus specifically on COVID, whether we locked down too late or not enough or something, rather than the policy itself and whether the entire national and indeed international response was actually the wrong one.
Yes, and you mentioned that Lady Hallett said that the families bereaved will be at the centre of the inquiry. Well, that is all very well, and I see that the first four participants are COVID-19 bereaved families for justice in England, Wales, Northern Ireland and Scotland. That is, however, a campaigning organisation with an objective, which the objective of which is to show, as they see it, that the government should have locked down earlier and harder. That is broadly their objective. And so they are not a neutral organisation. That's not to say they shouldn't have a full participant status. The remaining participants in this part of the inquiry are all, without exception, public bodies. And we know that public bodies have been also putting forward the suggestion that this is a normal and appropriate response. Interestingly, the first module is, this is quite an important point, the first module is the investigation into the preparedness of the country for the pandemic. And I've been reading through the opening note by counsel to the inquiry, and it barely, if at all, mentions the extensive pandemic plans which were completely ignored after mid-March 2020. And that's quite an extraordinary omission. It's also quite an extraordinary omission that the way in which this preparedness is couched does not consider historical, it barely, or if at all, considers historical precedent. It does consider international comparisons, but only to this pandemic, which were international approaches which were completely abnormal and contrary to everything that we have learned before 2020.